All right, episode 12, Lane 1 Talk Show. How we doing today, Mark?
It's been a minute, man. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. It's been way too long. It's been a while. It's been like 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about what we've been up to. I was a commentator on ESPN Plus. You were doing some racing around the state of California. And then most recently, we were up in San Francisco for the Centipede. And we're going to deep dive into our whereabouts. And actually, somewhere in there, I was in Brandon Shirk's wedding too. So that's where we've been for the past month or so. But I'm really glad. I've been looking forward to this episode for a while because I want to get everyone caught up on what's going on.
Yeah, dude. This is my first weekend home in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've been gone for like 6 weeks.
It's track season, it's wedding season, it's baby shower season.
Yeah, dude. There's just a lot going on at the moment in all of our lives right now, and we just have a lot of commitments. So happy that we can still do this. It's crazy because I feel like we dropped the last pod maybe like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So hopping right back on the horse. So let's get it. Let's kick things off with the low-hanging fruit, man. How was the ESPN Plus experience?
Oh, the ESPN Plus experience was great. Was a great experience overall. And just a brief review for those if you didn't catch the episode. I can't remember if it was 10 or 11 or maybe even 9. But Cal Poly alumni Tyler Huntley is now an assistant commissioner with the Big West, and he had reached out to me to be a commentator, an analyst, color commentator for the broadcast of Big West Track and Field Championships, which was a couple weeks ago here in SLO at Cal Poly. So it was a great experience. It was fire hose. It was drinking from a fire hose. Like you're trying to take a sip, but a fire hose blows in your face. And it was great. It was a lot of time each day. It was 6.5 to 7 hours on Friday and Saturday. Friday was the prelim. Finals were on Saturday. And like on Friday was a steep learning curve. That was kind of like my training, right? We were on a scissor lift. So imagine those construction like painter things that go up and down.
Yeah.
So we're on one of those. We're like elevated 12 feet off the ground. And so it's not like a booth, right? It's not like, you think of Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, right? They're in a booth. We're literally on a piece of construction equipment that you have to start an engine, right, to power up and get down. So using the restroom was inconvenient, right? And so Friday, we get going, and we start with there was this whole live introduction, right? And I was on camera. I was like live TV or live streaming on ESPN Plus. And it's like we did a rehearsal, and then we were like, okay, this is going to be our real one. Okay. And then they were like, okay, that was good. And then something happened in the production truck where we actually had to do it a third time. And I was caught off guard because they didn't tell me it was going to happen. We were going to have to do it a third time. So I had to say my thing again. I had this like little and they tell you exactly how they were like, hey, Phil, just say like 20 seconds about what we're going to do, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And so they were like, hey, just say like 15 seconds about what's going on. So I'm like, I didn't know exactly what to say. But I was on camera within like the first like 10 minutes of like sitting down in the booth or in the I'll just call it the booth, but it wasn't really a booth. But it was like it was like that like what you envision of like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Like, and I was sitting there like, and so that was like a little stressful because I like this podcast, and I'm a teacher, and so I'm used to talking in front of people. I've coached, but it's like live television isn't just like an internal conversation, right? It's not just like even this podcast is pretty conversational. Like you don't have that, oh, who's that person? Like you don't say that live for the audience to hear. You would maybe say that, even on a podcast, we could say something like that. Like, oh, was that Hobbs or was that Cole? You don't say that in the live broadcast. You have to be like a lot more precise with your speech. And
well, I mean, if you think about it in this manner, like there's a reason why there are people on like Twitch and like Instagram Live that legitimately make livings off of live reactions, because like there's a skill to it.
Yeah.
It's not something that anybody can just pick up and right off the bat be really good at. So for you, what did you think the most challenging part about it was in your experience?
The challenging part was the knowing about all the events, like the field events, hammer throw and pole vault, triple jump, discus, like javelin. Like I'm not like I've coached high school, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not super like proficient at the field events and a lot of those technical aspects of your pole vault approach. Like I know a little bit, like with pole vault, like they can move the standards forward and backwards.
Yeah.
And I was like texting Sharon Day, who's an Olympic heptathlete, went to Cal Poly. We were on the same track team. So I was texting her like the morning of, I'm like, hey, like, do throwers, do they like headwind or tailwind? Like, how's it work? And she was like, well, actually like a slight headwind for the discus gives it a little bit more lift. So I was like, okay, I would like wrote that down in my notes. So the knowing about all the events, especially like jav and hammer, which are not in high school, was a little bit challenging. But I did get some compliments, like, my dad and my wife, they were like, I didn't even know you knew this much about throwing events. Like that's like, cause I was like, I felt like I was dropping some knowledge on the hammer. I don't know, but that was my thought. But yeah, knowing about the other events was challenging at times. And they're just like the precision of what you're saying in the moment, right? You're getting the words physically out and accurate, interesting and entertaining. Like that was kind of hard sometimes, but luckily I was paired with a professional. Like he was a professional play-by-play guy.
Yeah.
His name's Brian, and he's an absolute pro, like getting us back from break and like lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, and like, okay, we're going to go to Chloe on the field for the on the field interview. Okay, we're going to transition to women's high. Like he was so good at the transitions and the television broadcast production side that really kept it flowing, and he was able to fill in those gaps where I didn't really know what was going on. But then like the articulation, the ums, the ahs, that was challenging. And
I like how you
just,
caught yourself there. You're about to say it and you're like,
yeah, I will say though that like doing that broadcast and that like for 14 hours in one weekend, it really made this podcast seem so much more manageable. Like, it's, the fact that I can go back and edit and it's just me and you talking at this point is like, oh man, that's way easier than having, couple, I don't know. I don't even know what the numbers were, but theoretically thousands of people, and I thought, in the grand scheme of things, I was thinking of like, okay, you have athletes from Hawaii, you have athletes from, from all over the country. And, you want to put together a nice product for them to stream from home.
Yeah.
So that I would say knowing about the events and just making sure you're saying things clearly and interestingly and precisely. And then the duration, just the sheer duration of covering every single event and round. And you're locked in, dude. You're locked in. You're not like, it was an alumni weekend. So like there was a whole bunch of like, I could see alumni, like Will Geichen's not an alumni, but he was walking around and he was like waving and like doing, Nick Wolf was like, they were kind of waving and trying to be silly. They weren't being annoying or anything. They were like, but they were waving but I didn't go to any of the alumni stuff. I went to zero alumni stuff, which is kind of a bummer, but like also I was exhausted at the end of each day. Like I was talking live television for 7 hours. I did not have any energy to go talk more.
it'll be personable for a couple more hours.
Yeah. So I would just like, I went home and I was just like, I hung out with my family, went to bed, got up, did it again. But yeah, I would say those 3 things were the challenging part, was knowing about the field events and just like saying the right thing. And then just like the endurance of just being at a track meet and saying things the whole time. Like even when you're a coach or when you're doing some other role at a track meet, either if you're kind of working it or you're whatever, like you can walk around and chill out. Like you can move around, right?
Yeah.
And you can eat, but like when you're on the mic and it's your chewing noises flowing through for the live audience to see, like you can't do that. So I was like muting myself to take a drink or take a quick like bar or something.
Yeah,
But
I didn't even take into consideration. It's kind of like the dude that does NFL Red Zone. when they showed his whole routine right before going into red zone. And because I don't think he gets up from his seat from like the morning game all the way until the end of like, what is it, like the 1 p.m. games.
Yeah.
So he is like legit in the booth from 7 a.m. all the way until like 4 p.m. So it's something similar to that, and something that no one took into consideration. Like he does all the commentary by himself. So it's like, no, I don't eat during, I don't use the bathroom during, I don't use water during, like I don't do any of that. So like, and you being on this complicated machine,
Yes.
you have to like really consider, because like, we're runners, we pee a lot. So like we drink a lot of water. Did you have to like actually actively like cut your intake a little bit just to make sure you didn't have to like go to the bathroom that much, or like
Yeah,
or like
yes.
really eat heavy in the morning to make sure you didn't have to eat that much during?
Yeah, I tried to eat a lot in the morning, but I'm like, just my nature, just my normal biorhythm is I don't eat a huge breakfast normally. Like breakfast for me is usually pretty light. So I try to eat a little bit heavier breakfast. And it was nice. They had a little hospitality set up. So they had sandwiches. So I'm like trying to just like munch on a sandwich as much as I can before I get up and I ran before. And on Saturday I did a little light tempo because I wanted to get some movement, because I knew I was going to sit down, but also to prepare for beta breakers, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also secretly to dehydrate myself so that I wasn't having to go to the bathroom. But luckily my broadcast buddy, Brian, he was like, dude, if you got to go to the bathroom every 20 minutes, I'm cool with that. But it was an ordeal because I had to lower the machine. And then again, these things are not built for two people just to be sitting with a desk and laptops on it. Right. Yeah. So it was really a tight area. So I had to like, he would be like still commentating, and I would be like lowering the machine and getting up and crawling behind him. And we had umbrellas set up. We had umbrellas duct taped to the back of the machine because we were in just a bright sun. So yeah, so that was challenging, the food and the water part. And because I also, you kind of get hungry, as runners, like you said, we got to go to the bathroom, we get a little hungry, get thirsty. So that was tough. And, another thing that was really cool, because I like video production. I like, making my vlogs and doing this kind of stuff. I've always been into editing videos and stuff. And so it was cool to kind of see how they do it.
Yeah.
And, that's their full-time job, is being broadcasters, right? There's a truck and there's a producer, there's a director, there's replay people, there's graphics people, there's animation people, there's a bunch of cameramen. There's the on the field reporter, Chloe. She was awesome. She actually worked for the Big West.
Really well.
She did really well. She was on it. She was like, putting myself in her shoes and watching her work, she had to chase down all these athletes who a lot of times were hyped, or she had to go find the field event athletes and coordinate with the camera guy. And yeah, so she did really well. But like, you almost feel like a guest in their house, right? Like, because this is like, they do this full time, and I'm like, who's this guy? So I wanted to have respect for their profession and not ruin the whole thing. And I was a Cal Poly alumni, and Cal Poly is hosting it. So I felt like I didn't want to you don't want to sink the boat, right? Like you don't want to be an embarrassment up there. So, so I had that in the back of my head to just keep it. I went like more conservative with my commentating than like super over the top. Right. But I think kind of one of my main takeaways was that even as we get established in life, and, especially like in running, I've been running for a while, I've been teaching for a long time, but you gain some confidence in yourself that you can get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I'm not a public speaker. I don't seek out public speaking opportunities. That's not my thing. I like behind the scenes. I'm probably more into the production side, to be honest. But it was nice to see if, dip your toe in some other world and see what you can do with when you're out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah. So having that experience, would you say you would do something like that again?
That's a good question. That's people have asked me that. And I think the short answer is yes, I would do it again. I really would like to have a field event person. I think if I had a field event person or a decathlete, like me and a decathlete, I think would be really great, because I could do a deep dive into studying the track events. I would even be fine with sprints and hurdles.
Yeah.
and relays. That's fine. I know enough about that. But to really do the jumpers and the throwers like justice, I think it would be nice to have somebody like that. They did allude to maybe cross country, which I
Oh, that's
think
cool.
cross country would be so cool, dude. A men's and a women's race,
Yeah.
right?
They had you on the lead cart too.
Oh, dude, it would be. And I talked to the guys. He said they use drones. They use drones for cross country, so they don't even have a bunch of cameras. You're just watching drone footage. And dude, I'm like, 2 races. They're like 20, 30 minutes tops. And you get there hour before, you stay an hour after. It's one day. Yeah. I think cross country would be pretty sick, to be honest with you. If I did like Big West cross country, that'd be fun. Yeah. So I think I would do it again. I would feel much more prepared going into it next time. Like my note taking wasn't, I was focusing on things that I didn't end up being as interesting as I thought they would be, like regional marks. But I will say, shout out Darren Peters. He's a fan of the show. He helped me take some notes. He really helped with the rankings. He helped me find the rankings, and that was really helpful because I knew the names and the rankings of all the people. But like regional times didn't end up being as like interesting as I thought they would be.
Really?
Yeah. Like I don't know.
It's really hitting marks at conference, right?
Yeah. Because everyone like who had a regional mark already had it, right? Some people achieved them. I don't remember exactly who. Some people achieved them, but it was kind of a lot of effort to find out all the people who had the regional marks, and it didn't end up being like a super like it. It was a lot of work for like not that much juice. So I think next time I would spend more time on storylines and kind of what they did at like Brian Clay and what they did at the Beach Invite, and that kind of stuff I think is a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it's a great experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, great questions. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, ESPN. Thank you, Big West. Thank you, Tyler Huntley.
Yeah.
But yes, you have been racing a lot lately. You were at Oxy, you're at Sound Running. What have you been up to?
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. I always tell people I don't run because it's good for my health. I train because like I always like to separate that too. Like I don't run, I train. Everything I do every day is intentional. And my favorite time of the year is when I get to start racing. So early this month, I headed down to LA a couple times this month. First time, actually both races at Oxy. So took another swing at a 1500, and I was the first time out of the A heat, or I guess not really the A heat. It was an interesting meet because like the A heat of that race was NAU, like Matt Centrowitz and Craig Angles. That was it. So it was like 6 guys total, and they went out chasing the Olympic standard. Nobody got it that day, but they had a couple guys run like 334, 335, 336.
What's the Olympic standard?
Like 332 point or something like that. I think like 332.5, something like that.
Do you think that you'll actually have to run that to get in this year?
Nah, there's rankings, but that's just how you get it without like any nuances. Right. So not to get too off topic, but like the whole thing with like the athletes, I forget what the terminology is. It's like universal athletes or something like that. Like the ones that get a bid because their country doesn't have anybody on the track. And they used a lot of those on the marathon. And there's a huge controversy right now because guys like Leonard Career that got 3rd at the U.S. Olympic trials isn't going because of these athletes. And it was one of the guys.
Is that official?
Yeah, that's official. So
wasn't it May something? Wasn't it recent that the Paris Accord or whatever it is closed?
Yeah, it was it was like last week. And so like got like, no offense, fantastic runners, but you got a 217, 218, 219 guy going to the Olympics instead of like a 209 guy.
And that's their one track and field athlete for that country, right? Because so for the sport of track and field, they get one representative. So sometimes they'll put it in the 100 meters, right?
Yeah, you'll have like 100 run like
14. And I watch those heats, but it's oftentimes countries that are developing their track and field programs, right? So countries they're really learning how to do track and field in that country, and they have several sections of rounds of that 100 meters, but they can also use that for the marathon.
Yeah, you can use that for any event. Yeah,
Oh
and
man,
the marathon is considered a track event.
that's
So, yeah, but going back to your main question, you probably won't need the standard, but it'll be incredibly helpful. Like, you'd have to have a really good ranking. So, like, a guy like Centro who's run, like, 335 maybe 3 times this season already, or, like, 335, 335, 336, he might be ranked high enough to be able to go off ranking. It was the same thing like Joe Wascom last year. It was the same thing with Cole Hawker back in 2021. Like, they had the ranking, and then they go to the final and wind up running like 331. But yeah, so you had that A heat, and then the B heat was the heat I really wanted to be in because it was going to be paced for 227 at the front through the K, and where my fitness led me to believe I thought I can run 345, 346. And Silas was in that heat too, and he wound up running 345. And I've been doing all my workouts with him. So I thought, like, I'm in really good shape too. He wound up running 345 in that heat, finishing maybe like towards the back a little bit. But he was able to get dragged to a fast time. He came through at Bell Lab like 244. So for me, I thought I could have competed in that heat pretty well. But I have this thing where now whatever heat I get put into, I don't complain about it. And I just go out there and compete because I fought to get into heats in the past, and there was one time last year specifically at Brian Clay Invite where I moaned and I complained to the meet director about getting into a heat. And I know him personally too, so like he's a friend, and he was like, "Yo, there's nothing I can do," and I like just kept complaining and kept complaining, and I got bumped up a heat, and I'm like, "Okay, like perfect. I think I can run something stupid fast, bro." And I got DFL. I ran a 355 in the 1500, and
oh
I got
man,
dropped out the back. The winner of my heat ran 344, and I ran 355, and I
oh
was
man,
so I felt embarrassed because you spend all that time, you know how big of a meet Brian Clay is, and I'm in this dude's email inbox, and I get stubborn, like I'm hitting this dude up all the time trying to move up a heat. So
yeah,
after that experience, I was like, I can't do that again. Like, just take the heat you're in, and if you feel you're good, you're too good for it, then you better win that.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I feel like that's really good insight to what it's like to be a blue collar runner who's trying to get into heats.
yeah,
Because it's not that easy for us to get into sections. I feel like these meet directors will be a lot more lenient with college kids,
yeah,
and with us, it's just like we're lucky to even get in. I mean, I know more recently I've been rejected more, but I know that I'm a little bit on the older end when it comes to track and field, so that doesn't really phase me. But yeah, sometimes it's like just to even get into a race is challenging. Like I know Peyton Jordan's been really hard to get into these days for post collegiate non Nike athletes, but yeah, so you learned your lesson and you were thankful to be in a heat.
yeah. So I was fine with that. So I said, I'm gonna win this heat, like no matter what. I'm
Nice.
gonna go out there and I'm gonna execute.
So was
And
that technically heat 3 or was it heat 2?
it was heat 3.
Okay.
Yeah, because heat 1 was the Olympic standard, heat 2
Right,
was
right.
like the competitive, and then heat 3 was my heat. So my strategy was I'm gonna start in the back and move up a third of the race every lap. No matter what the splits are, no matter where everybody else is, this is what I'm gonna do. So I went out there, first lap about 62, second lap about 61, and then I hit the bell. And the second I crossed the bell, I was in third, and I knew like, oh yeah, I won this.
Oh,
And the guy had
nice.
a pretty sizable gap on me. And just with 300 to go, I just made a crazy move down the back stretch. I wound up closing in like a 43 in the last 300, like fairly controlled.
Nice.
And anyone that has ever seen me race, I have a stank like fizz face on, and like my face looks like it's in pain. I have the windshield wipers out, like hands driving. You know what I'm talking about? And this time I didn't have any of that. I took the lead with 100 to go and just blew those guys' doors off. And I felt comfortable and I felt real easy. And it's funny that I'm saying like blew their doors off because I'm in heat 3. Like that's talking a big game from heat 3. But I tied my PB and I did it super comfortably.
Nice.
So yeah, that was a lot of confidence, especially going into a big 5K next week.
Right. Yeah, and I think what's got to give you some confidence too is not so much the time, but how you executed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how you ran with confidence and you like moving through the race as you did maybe more beneficial and more confidence inspiring than being perhaps in a faster race and being towed along to a fast time and getting fourth, fifth, sixth. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But sometimes using those actual real race skills of having to swing out, having to pass people, having to kick it in, it's sometimes a little bit more meaningful when your end goal is something other than that 1,500 meters.
Yeah, I was saying it was bittersweet because end of day, like you do want a PR when you step on the track, right?
Right.
And especially in my position where time does matter in the sense of like 348 is not getting me anywhere. Let's be honest. 348 isn't moving me up anywhere. I'm still not getting into the day sections at Brian Clay. Like I'm still not like getting into faster heats.
Right.
Staying at 348 has me stagnant. So like it I will take wins whenever they come, and I'll take the confidence that I ran that 348 easier than ever. Like it's tied for my all-time best.
Yeah.
So the fact that it came to me feeling easy is a good sign of where I'm at.
Yeah.
But
It's
that
it's
takes
such a
me
go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say, that takes me to the next week though.
Yeah.
My 5K at Sound Running, which was almost the perfect executed race for me. So looking at the results, I got 8th, but it doesn't paint the full picture of what happened. So just to go behind the curtain a little bit, the week before and every race this season, I've been eating 4 hours before my race. And that's what I've been doing since high school, and it's worked for me. But for whatever reason, this track season, I've been feeling like super full going into it. So what ended up happening was before the 5K, I don't know why I decided to do this. It's stupid. And this was on part of our self-sabotage episode, but trying something a little different on race day. But it was only because before that 1,500, I'm not kidding, I had to go like full bulimia and like stick my finger down my throat and like force myself to puke because during my warm-up, dude, my stomach was cramping. I was so full like from my lunch and I was just like uncomfortable. And that happened to me like the last couple races, more frequent than it's ever happened. I never have stomach problems on race day. But like last couple times that happened. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try eating like 45 minutes earlier. So 4 hours, 45 minutes before the race. And thought it would work out. But I bonked on the warm-up and like got lightheaded. If anyone doesn't know what bonking is, it's when your glycogen gets depleted. And I
And so
bonked.
you were having that bonking feeling in the warm up.
Yes.
So I usually get the bonking feeling in long runs or maybe on the cool down of a long workout.
Mhm.
And you were getting that in your warm up.
In my warm-up. Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, no." Luckily, shout out Nick Randazzo, man. Saved my life, though. Probably would have had an even worse race. But he was like, "Yo, I got some Martin if you want." So I just took some swigs of Martin and ate a granola bar and was like, "Okay, like, let's hope this holds me over." We
Nice.
get on the start line, and I'm feeling pretty good. And they say the prescribed pace is going to be 8:05 through 3K. And for anybody that's about 64 points, I cannot run 64 points, nor can anybody in that field. So we go out and we clip off the first lap is 64 point. And I'm maybe middle of the pack towards the back about 67. And then from there, the pacer slows down too. I think everyone realized right away, like, bro, we're not doing this today. And so in the front, they're running maybe like 65s, and I'm a little off. And then I make a move. And from there, like a gap opens up between the front guys running 65s and myself running 66, 60 or 66 points. So I'm trying to stay poised and stay relaxed and be like, you can do this. Like, you're going to close this gap. So from the mile to the 2 mile, I ran alone, trying to close this gap. And that was my race strategy. I was like, I'm not going to go out stupid. I've been going out too hard every single race. So, like, let's try being a little more conservative and like be comfortable running by yourself if you have to, and be confident in the fact that like you're going to close that gap. Be confident in your fitness. So that's what I did, and I eventually with 2 mile or at the 2 mile, I closed the gap and I caught back up to the pack. And then from there, it became a tactical race the moment the pacer dropped, because I went from running 66 fives on the nose, like solo, to closing the gap on the pack. Then we run a 67. And then when the pacer dropped, we went 69, 70.
Oh boy.
So we went to a jog, and it was a tactical race. I found myself from 8th to like maybe 4th place. and I was on the outside of lane 1, inside of lane 2. So now we're hitting 1,000 meters to go, and I feel great. I feel fantastic. And
awesome.
I was telling Silas, I had a dream I closed my last K in 2:32.
Oh.
So in the race, I'm like, I'm about to close into 2:32. So I take the lead from a K out and make a really aggressive move. And I feel good doing this. And I end up dropping like a 64 penultimate lap. And the pack is coming up, getting ready to kick. And all of a sudden, here comes the bonking feeling back. Bell lap. I'm like, you know what? Like, we're going to muscle through this. And so I start driving, like getting ready to like knee lift, everything. Left quad seizes up. Man. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like that hurts. And I hit the back stretch and I see Silas come around me. And I'm like, go with him. Like, you need to respond. Forget how your quad feels. Right quad seizes up and they are gone. And now it's, bro, am I going to finish this race with 250 meters to go? Am I going to finish?
But were you feeling good? Like other than your quads, were you feeling like you were able to like ramp up and close?
If I had to, I feel like I would have forced it. Yeah. I don't think I could have ran with those guys closed. Like, so I'll finish painting the scenario how it went, and then I'll like circle back on that. But like, so it became just finish, and I got to the home stretch, dude, and I swore I was going to fall just with how bad my quads and my legs were like tensed. And I crossed the finish line, and I immediately like fall into the infield, and Nikki Hiltz's camera people, she showed up with a full camera crew with a boom operator, camera, everything. I don't know why they picked me to do this too, but they put the damn camera in my face with the boom in my face while I'm on the ground lying there screaming in agony because my quads are cramping like Charlie horse status. And I was just like, oh, like my quads. And a trainer comes like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, just let me like lie here for a little bit. She's like, do you want to stretch? I was like, no, like do not touch me. And man. I turn around and I see these cameras in my face. And I'm like, what the hell, bro? Like, get these out of my face. But looking back at it, I don't think I wound up finishing 8th, and I had the lead at going into the bell. They wound up closing in about a 58. Silas got 2nd, and he closed in a 58. If I'm being realistic, I don't think I would have closed in a 58. I think I may have closed in like a 60, and that still would have got me like 3rd or 4th. And that's why I was saying I was really hard on myself that night, in the sense where I had a sad boy post on Strava. Like, I got all emotional. I was like, damn, bro, like I'm starting to question if like, is everything I'm doing worth it? Like how much work I'm putting in. And then like, you know, you go on a long run the next day and you have time to calm down from your emotions. And then I'm like, you were 350 meters away from being incredibly hyped about your race, because I did everything perfect until I cramped up. Like I did everything perfect until I bombed. I executed that race. I closed every gap. I made all the moves I wanted to, and I had the lead with 400 to go. Like, and to put it back in perspective, I went 32.64. So what is that? About a 136 for 600. If I close in a 60, I close in a 236.
Yeah.
K, and that's fast I've ever run.
Yeah.
Like a K in a race. So I was 350 meters away from having an A+ a day and being incredibly psyched. And that's something that I have to consider. It's like, well, you did a self-sabotage move that we talked about on our last pod, and you changed something on race day. Like I just talked about it 2 weeks before that, and I did exactly that. So to me, I was annoyed by that. So it's like, it's your own doing, man. Like you sabotage yourself there trying something different. Like we thought it would work, but you should have just stuck to your guns. But grand scheme of things, I'm happy with the race because I ran it exactly how I wanted to. I just made a feeling mistake, and that shouldn't happen in the future.
So what are you going to do to prevent that from happening? I feel like you have a lot of good data points with all your racing and your training this season. So, you know, we're putting together next week is Portland, right?
Yeah.
So what do we do? 2 weeks. So what is your plan to make sure that cramping doesn't occur again?
I'm just going to eat breakfast sooner. So I think the issue that I had when I was getting too full was I was going to breakfast with my mom like around like 10:30 a.m. and then going to lunch, and I'd race at like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And I think eating breakfast, like think about it, like I'm going to IHOP or like Denny's, or mostly IHOP. And it's like you sit down at 10:30, right? Then you wait for your order. You wait to order, then you like eat. And by the time you finish eating, it's like 11:30, 12. and then you're having to eat lunch again at 3, and you're eating lunch trying to get full again. So I think I just ate breakfast too late. And I think the approach this time around is I just have to eat breakfast at like a normal breakfast time when I normally eat, like I do every single day before every workout. Like that's the point of practice, right? It's to simulate races. So it's like, well, looking at your normal routine on a daily basis, like for those that don't know, I work Central Time. Like the agency I work for is based in Minnesota. So I'm up every day at like 6:15, 6 o'clock. And I eat breakfast at 7 a.m. every day. I eat lunch every day at 11 a.m. And then and then I go on my run at 3, and then I eat again at like 6 p.m. So my body is feeling so out of rhythm on race days because I'm waking up now at 9 o'clock. Then I'm eating at 11 when I'd normally have lunch by then. And then when I'm supposed to run, I'm eating again. So my body's like, yo, what the hell? Like, we're usually trying to feel good at this time.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just about being more in rhythm. So breakfast it doesn't have to be 7 a.m., but like closer, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Like be eating at 10 a.m. and then lunch like 4 hours before the race. And then go to race.
Yeah. You could almost, like, if you wanted to, you could set your alarm and get up and eat your breakfast at 7 and then just chill out in your bed afterwards. Like if
Even
you're
go
getting
take a nap.
yeah, go take a nap or something. Like you know, that makes sense, man. The biorhythm stuff is real. Like so much of the practicing, and dude, once you get into the marathon, that's going to be like so much of the routine. Your fueling in your night before your routine and your morning of routine. It's like it's almost like part of the race.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's part of it. And that's the thing that kills me. It's like, bro, I'm so routine based, but like this season I haven't been on race day. Like I haven't been doing what I normally do on race day, and that has killed me.
Yeah, well, that's like, when I think about racing, when I think about, giving people advice, I like, when I like having a season. I like the idea of a season and having incremental low risk situations for you to go out there and perform and practice your routine and your travel and your fueling and all those little details that need to be dialed in. Because I'm like a big, like, okay, if I can't do this at Cuesta College, I'm not going to be able to do this at the trials or at Club Nats or at the US champs or whatever I'm training for. Right. So I love the walkthrough. I love just like that mini camp vibe of like, okay, you gotta wake up tomorrow. You got to do your fueling. You got to get your yogurts in. So yeah, I think you're going to get it all dialed in, man. I think these are great data points. And the fact that you still broke 14 after seizing up in the last lap, that's got to be encouraging,
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to walk away with the PB, but the race just didn't happen. Part of me does wonder too, like I was running 66 points and I caught up to the pack. So I do wonder, should I have just blown past the pack and kept going rather than just tucking in and being like, all right, let's race now. Like, would I have gone a faster time? But again, it's all hindsight. I bonked going into the last lap too. So it's like, I probably would have bonked sooner. Like, keep going 66s. So
yeah, it's
hindsight, but
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's what I've been up to. Oxy Sound running. Next up is Portland. I'm going to take a swing at the 10K. It's looking like the Olympic trials time is about 28:16 right now, assuming everybody in that top is going to
declare.
Yeah, assuming everybody's going to declare. In my mind, I just want to have a good day. If I get that standard or not, I think if I go out there and compete and execute a race the way I want to and walk away with the PB, I think that's going to be the best case scenario. I can't tie myself to this arbitrary goal.
Yeah.
Whether I make it or not, that's been my goal. But whether I make it or not, I just need to walk away knowing that I executed my plan. So going into it, I'll be excited. So if anybody listening to this, Portland in 2 weeks, Portland Track Festival, I'll be taking a swing at that 10K.
Yeah. I think you're in such a good position. It's such a low risk situation. You get to go. You're going with Sealis, right? Sealis is Craig going? Craig Huff.
Yeah, Craig Huff is going. John G might be going. Dustin is going to. Brian Gaharo might go, like to support and stuff like that, and just hang out. And yeah, we might have a decent squad out there.
Yeah, I really wanted to go, like, and just be like the media person. I want to be I'll be your cameraman. I'll get a boom operator too.
Yeah, we got to earn you some brownie points real quick.
I know. I want to. Yeah, it's fun. Like when I was down there at Brian Clay, I had so much that was awesome. It's just like you're just trackside, and when we went to Blake and I went to Sound Running the 10.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to go and support. I'm curious. I had a question about the pacing. It was set up for 64, and though you said nobody in that heat could handle 64, this does happen in these events a lot, especially with B heats and C heats. What is the thought process behind having the pace be a second and a half, 2 seconds faster per lap than what the field is capable of?
I think it's optimism, man. Because
Okay.
the way, sorry, I had to adjust my chair, but the way you got to think about it is if you have guys entering at 1340, you think that their goal is to run 1330, right? Or under 1330. So the thought process is if the pacer is out in the front running an 805 3K, that means the field should be coming through on average about 807s to 810. And if you're running 807 to 810, you're running between 1330 and 1335. So the idea is if you have a bunch of guys entering at 1340 to 1345, their goal should be in 1330 to 1335, right? So a lot of it is to get the field out there, and assuming there's margin for error. If the pacer's trying to go to 3K, they might not be able to do that. So you're thinking they might slow down a little bit. But I've called sound running out for that like multiple times. And then I had to eat my words last year when they set our pacers to 64s. And I was like, I guarantee you 0 people run that. 2 guys in our heat broke 1320. And it was just like, yeah, like 3rd place was 1330, 4th place was 37. And then I was like 15th at 55. So you had bulk of the field between 37 and 55 who would have all greatly benefited from maybe 66s, 65s. But because there's those 2 guys that went 1318 and 1320, like you can't argue with that, right? The meet director would come back and be like, we set it to 64s. We had 2 guys run 64s. Like that's the point of it, man.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So would you say though, that's a great explanation though. Thank you. That's really answers the question. Do you think though that there's for these sound running events, these type of events, that they're always going to lean they're always going to lean on the elite side of things? Like they're going to lean on the chance that one dude breaks 1320 versus everyone running 1340s?
I think so, just because that's like the kind of field Jesse wants there.
Yeah. Versus like a college field. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but a college field, it's maybe going to be more conservative, right? You want everyone to get that regional mark. You want to have like a long line of guys. And again, I'm talking BCD heats. I'm not talking about your home run heats, your 13 flat, 13-0. Would you say college is maybe going to be a little bit more conservative with the pacing to get as many dudes moving as possible?
Well, to be quite honest, I think the times that are running college, there's more of a lump sum of them, and they all go to the same meets. I think there's a little less, especially for the time of year that these sound running meets are. There are less guys, like the field is less saturated. So I think the way our field was assembled this year was very ideal for the way 65, 66 was paced. So we came through 2 miles in about 850. So that's right around 818 through 3K. So our field was 1340 through 14 flat. And I think they kind of caught on to that just because, and that's why they might have pseudo slowed down the pacing like mid race. We're supposed to come through 805. We came through 818. So, and that worked out in our favor. And then the pace fell off. If the pace hadn't fallen off on those 2 laps, you potentially had like 8 guys run PBs, 8 to 10 guys run PBs, just because we would have stayed on the pace, but we didn't. But I think in college races, it's a little easier to set an exact pace because there's more people within those times all at one meet. So like Brian Clay, I think even the D heat like had a bunch of guys in the 1340s because you take all of these guys that are in the range of 1350 to 14 flat and you put them in a heat going 66s. You have more guys doing that. And then you can make another heat like pace 65s. And you have 20 guys between 1335 and 1340.
Right. So it's not so much a college versus pro, it's more of like a numbers game.
Yeah, it is a numbers game. And again, like I wouldn't really consider myself professional or people at my level professional, just because like in the sense of like we're not like there's not a lot of people in our position that are post collegiate running the times we're running. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
a rare amount of people at our level. Like,
Yeah.
and you can see that going to club cross. Like you and I have finished in the top 10. You and I have finished in the top 20 like pretty consistently. So when you look at that, those are the guys that are between like 1330 and 1350. And there's only like 20 people.
Yeah.
When you look at that in the US, there's only like 30 people that are running between those times
Uh,
total. So there's just not that many people doing that.
but
So
there's 1 million in the NCAA though.
yeah, like there's just more in the NCAA, but there's not many guys post collegiate running those times
That's a
because
good point.
if you're the terminology we always use is a Sean Davidson, like
Sean Davidson.
if you're a 1403 guy in college, you're probably not running post collegiately. Except there's the rare fact like me who are still chasing the silly dream like post college
Right.
in the sense of like we want to see how fast we can do this. And we end up in that 1340 range. We end up in that 2840s range. And there's not many post collegiate guys doing that.
And I think what you mean is not so much that they're not running anymore. They're just not doing track. They're doing roads or
Yeah.
cross country.
Yeah.
I'm just this has been such a great conversation because I'm a fan. Because when I was your age, back in my day, you know, in my first 8 years of my career, I was big into the BCD heats, and I was, you know, so like I was very much if you know I did run 1339 once, but I was very much for the majority 1355. 13, you know, just under 14 minutes, you know, so I definitely like I'm very interested in the dynamic of these events and how you and the pacing, because you're right, like there's so many college kids out there that can just go dance around the track at 1345 and you get 12th and it's everyone's happy at in and out, right?
Yeah.
But like the post collegiate grinding of the 1348 and the D heat and not getting in and whatever is just interesting to me.
Yeah. And again, it's also like you have to you almost have to plan your season in a certain way because like for me, I do sometimes forget my PB came in July.
Right.
Like, and that's how our season is built. And for me, being frustrated that I'm not sharp in May is something that I give like shout out Joe, but like I give him shit sometimes and be like, bro, I don't feel good. Or like, bro, we haven't touched 15 pace. Like, how am I supposed to be hitting these splits? And his response, like, you told me you wanted to run fast at Portland in June. Like, the hell's your problem? Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean, bro? Like, like we're
No, yeah.
periodizing. Yeah, like we're periodizing for June, July. So sometimes it's hard because the bulk of my races will be in quote unquote base phase in March, April, and then I'm just starting event specific workouts in May. So, and what's pretty funny about it is I feel if the pace hadn't fallen off to like 70s, I probably would have ran like 1352, 1353, which 2 years ago I would have considered the best day of my life. But this year, like getting like 2 years ago, I broke 14 for the first time at Oxy. Almost exactly like 2 years to the date that I ran 1359. If I had done that 2 years ago, I would have like cried tears of joy because I finally got under 14. But this time around, I'm crying because I wasn't happy with my race. So it's pretty funny to look at it in retrospect. But all that to say, like a lot of times you do have to be like the bulk majority of the races within my skill set are in April. And I'm peaking for that. So it's difficult.
Well, because we're leveraging a lot of the collegiate season, you know, for what we're trying to do, and because there's not a ton of pro specific events in March and April, but or there's also not a ton of late season, June, July, like BC heats that we can get into, right? There's not a lot. Like you have the Sunset Tour, and then that's going to be hit or miss if they're going to have even sections for us, right? I was one year they just cut the 10K altogether when I was, so like it's like the heats that we can get into are in base phase, right?
Yeah.
But we're not super sharp. So then it's hard to get the times that you need to get into the July races when you're fine,
Yeah. Like literally when I ran my PB, I owe a steak dinner to Nico Montanas. Like, I flat
Yep.
out told him after, like, bro, wherever you want to go eat after this, just tell me, because the heat was being paced again. It was being paced to 64s, and front went out. They broke away right away, and we're behind this one random guy. I forget what country he was from. He was a foreigner though, and I scream out because I was tucked in right behind him. He's slowing down. Go around him. So the whole field goes around him, and the person that was leading charge was Nico Montanas. I literally tucked in behind him. This was like 3 laps into the race. I tucked in behind him from 3 laps into the race until a K to go. And then he just clicked off to a T 67s on the nose. And I looked at my splits like afterwards, 67-0, 67-0, 67-0. And all I had to do was zone out and stay on him. Then with the K to go, shout out again, Nick Randazzo goes around him, and I just go with Nick. And then the last lap, I closed into 62. And that's how I got to my PB. I just sat behind Nico for like 9 laps, or maybe like, I'm doing math wrong, 7 laps. And then Nick makes a move. I sit behind him for another 2, and then I outkick him with 200 to go. And I wind up running 13:49. And it's like sometimes you just at these meets, and I think I got like 6th in that race just because everyone that went with the 64s died. And I just caught them all in the last lap. And literally, it was just luck that when I shouted out, I kid you not, I audibly screamed, he's slowing down, everyone go around him. And I got lucky that the guy who decided to take the charge was able to click off 67s on the nose. And
yeah, that's helpful.
And for context, 67s is
1358. Yeah.
1358. So I was running 67s, and then the last K I ran like sub 240 and closed and got sub 1350.
That's how it's done.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. So Portland's coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Dude, I could talk about BC D sections of the 5K like all day, every day. It's like my favorite topic. Yeah. So that said, good work, Mark. Good luck.
Yeah, we still got some time on the clock. Let's chat a little Beta Breakers.
Let's chat a little Beta Breakers. So most recently, last weekend, in terms of when we're recording this, we went up to San Francisco for Beta Breakers, the Centipede. 13 people linked together with bungee cords running through San Francisco from downtown to the breakers, to the ocean. Myself, I had to work a middle school track meet on Saturday, the race on Sunday. On Saturday, my wife is the athletic director at a middle school that puts on a big regional track and field meet at the high school that I work at. So I was there helping with the event, and it was great. She did a great job. My wife was actually the meet director for that. I was assistant to the meet director. So, but yeah, it was great. There's like 800 kids. The stands were full, man. Like it was like varsity football game full.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was full. We got people from Lompoc to Paso. So all the middle schools from Lompoc to Paso came. Anyways, that was all day. And then jumped in a car with the boys. Dougie drove. We had all 5 seat belts clicked. And yeah, we did the whole drive up. Did the Soledad. Got was Teriyaki Express.
Shout out Teriyaki Express, bro. You got it. If anyone's ever driving up the 101 and you see a stop in Soledad, hit up Teriyaki Express, get that barbecue plate, bro. Woo! Like, It's actually underratedly good, right? We're not just saying that because it's nostalgic, right? It's pretty good food.
It's good food, and it's like, what is it, 13 or 14 bucks? And I get the teriyaki bowl with rice and vegetables, and it's good. It's filling. It's got your carbohydrates, you got your protein, and it's the right amount of time before you get to your, it's like, if you're going north, you got what? It's like 2 hours left, an hour and a half left at that point.
Yeah.
And so Soledad was that. It's just a little south of Salinas.
Yeah, a little south of like Salinas, King City, I believe.
Yep. So we roll up there and get to the hotel. I personally, I got into the hotel and I got immediately tired, and I traveled with a heating pad because I was in full race mode. I was in full elite brain. I was ready to roll because I had tweaked my hamstring and I'd been rehabbing, and I was a little iffy on, if I was even going to be able to last the whole race. So I hydrated. I just went to bed, and yeah, I just went to bed, and then we woke up the next day, ferry building, and I was in my head going to be a floater. So floater is a backup. There's 13 starters, and 14 and 15 are the backups. So I was going to be number 14. And because again, my hamstring it had been doing better, and it's shout out Scott, but it had been doing better, but my fitness wasn't also very great either. I'd only been running about like 30 miles a week, 25 miles a week. So there's a lot of question marks in my area, but we get there. They're like, Phil, you're clipping in. We're down a man. You're clipping in. You're starting in the Centipede. So we go out there. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And that we were just talking before the show started. That start of the Centipede, Mark, is slight uphill into the wind. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And then 2 miles in, you hit the steep hill, and then it sort of tapers off, and it's not as uncomfortable. But that first part, I was kind of redlining a little bit. That first part, like I was not super comfortable. I was also all the way in the back. I was all the way the last runner. There was no one behind me, and yeah, I was lucky to stay. I was very happy. I was very lucky to not have any issues, because again, I was a little worried. What about your perspective?
Oh man, so same thing for you for the trip up, except I went out the night before. Do you want any details about the night before, or should I just exclude that?
I mean, you could probably share your, what is, you could share some of the details that you want the people to hear.
Yeah, no, it wasn't wild. I didn't do anything wild, to be like bluntly honest. Like there have been times before the Pede where I've like blacked out and got home at like 4 a.m. and then got up at 6 to go to the ferry building. But this is not one of those.
Yeah.
We just went out for a couple drinks, met a few people, talk, like, shoot a couple shots for my boys out there. Goals try to talk to girls absurdly out of my league. So that's kind of what happened. And it was actually a pretty successful night. So
yeah, nice.
So that was cool. And then got back to the hotel maybe around like 12:30. So nothing crazy. Went to bed maybe around like 1. And then got up for the Pede. Same thing. I can't lie. The first couple miles were kind of hard for me too, just to get into a rhythm. I did a full-fledged workout the night before or the day before. So what I mean by is like I did 8 by 400 61, like with 60 seconds recovery. So like it was a tough workout. Like I was flat back by the end of it. That was like hardest work I'd done all season. And to come back and, sit in a car all day, be up till like 1, and then get up and go do because at the end of the day, 7.5 miles at threshold or 7.5 miles at marathon pace, like that's still a beefy workout on its own. Like if I got prescribed 7.5 miles at 5:15 pace, I would consider that like a full workout. So for me doing a full workout on Saturday and then coming back the next day and doing that tempo, like the first two, like maybe about the first mile and a half, it took me a little bit to get under, like my legs under myself. And then after the hill, like I was just cruising from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, like working a bit harder than I wanted to, in the sense of like, you're bungee to other people. So like you end up having to pull at some point. But so I ended up having to pull a little bit. And it just makes, 5:18 pace feel closer to 5 flat pace. Just because, I'm small.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because it's like kind of two different perspectives, right? Like this was, this was kind of a good, you're going to know way more about this than me, but it's almost like a block training, right?
Yeah.
It was like a 2-day kind of block training for you and Silas, and, the people, Dougie did that too, right? Didn't Dougie do the mile, the 400s?
He did 1 400 at like 61, and then like a bunch of 200s at like 20.
Okay. Right. So, kind of block training for you guys, but, and then, a little bit more casual with going out the night before, but I was clicking in the race mode, dude. Like I brought my yogurts in a little snack pouch, in a little frozen snack pouch. I brought everything. I had all my hydration, all my, just almost basically like the Orlando kit on this. Cause I was like, and I know no GoPro, no 360 camera, no messing around. I was just locked in to getting this thing done because I didn't want to sink the boat. So, it's good. Obviously you're in shape. You're in you're in sub 14 shape at least. It's not much. So that's. And I've been there. I've been there, but having been in your shoes before, it's definitely allows yourself to be a little bit more relaxed on Saturday night.
Yeah.
But yeah, we ended
like you don't take it too like if you don't. I feel like if I don't take it too seriously, I enjoy it. And like
yes,
end of day, I'm gonna game up. Like I'm not gonna be the guy that messes up. Like I promise you that I will never like. I think I've done the PED off of 2 weeks of training before, and that was also the same year that I like got blocked out to like 4 a.m. So, and I still rolled up and was pulling what the hell's his name, Justin Carancho up the hill. Sorry, you can blurt that out. But I was pulling Justin Carancho up the hill, and like off of 2 weeks of training and going out to like 4 a.m. And I was just not going to be that guy. And it's funny because there's this like, I'll send you the picture so you can like link it in a clip or something. But like, there's a picture of me like evidently suffering so bad in this PED because I was like 15 pounds overweight, so out of shape. Like I had been coming off a hamstring tear, like
right.
And I trained for 2 weeks and did one tempo on the track. I did 5 miles or 4 miles at 5:20 pace and was like, I'm in for the PED.
That's honestly what I did. I did when I talked about the ESPN broadcast, I did 4 times a mile at like 5:20, 5:19 pace, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I did 8 days before the Centipede. Because I told myself if I was able to like duration wise complete like with warm up and cool down 55 minutes of running, then and with some of that at like pace, then I told myself if I can get through that, you can make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
But like I just, it's funny you brought up the 4 mile tempo because that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, bro. You just have to be like, can I do this? And for me, it's like, can I get to the hill? Is usually like the idea. And it's like, yeah, if I can make it to the hill, like the last 4 miles are downhill.
Yeah, you can make it through after that point. But yeah, dude, that's that's a funny trip down memory lane there. Was that 2019?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that was the year I got my knee surgery. I was looking back at the history books. I actually missed we all missed a couple of years, but like I didn't do the Centipede 19, 20, 21. I don't think it existed in 20 or 21 because of the COVID pandemic, but like I didn't like from 2019, I didn't do it again until 2022. So 2018, I didn't do it again until 2022. So I didn't realize there was a solid gap there with that. But so that's why maybe that story didn't sound as familiar because I don't think I was clipped in that year. But yeah,
that was a young squad year that year.
Yeah.
We went out and there was like legit like 20 of us.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. Rolling deep.
Because we had a girls team too. That's when the girls won. Like
was that like when we had Claire, Ayla, Jenna?
Yeah, we had like all of them and like
Natalie, Hannah.
Yeah, that squad.
Yeah,
and so we had the girls go out and we had the guys go out.
Well, so, that was the squad that won Club Nats that fall, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we had a big team going out.
Yeah, that's fun. Some years you get that. Yeah, but I mean, well, overall, we won the race. We maintained 5:22 pace, about 40 minutes for 12 kilometers.
Yeah. Wasn't our fastest time, but we still got the win, so that's what matters.
Yeah. Oh, I meant to look up the annals of time and see what. I'll try and get that by the next episode. But yeah, we did well. The West Valley Track Club, they started closing in on us, but we put the pedal to the metal and gapped them.
Yeah, we still closed pretty hard. Like we closed sub 5 and the last 800 was like 220, 225, 223. And keep in mind, this is 13 people.
Yeah. So for everyone to step on the gas it is impressive. But yeah, dude, I had a ton of fun. It was exactly 24 hours. We left at 5. We got 5 back next day. It was
crazy.
And you figure like 8 of those hours are driving, and then 6 of those hours were sleeping. So like we didn't have much waking moments on the ground in San Francisco at all.
Nah, bro, we got in at 10 and put our stuff in our room and went to the bars. And then got back and then went to sleep and then got up and then went to go race.
Yeah. Yeah. And that Metro Transit home, the Muni was fun.
Yeah. We actually met a lot of really interesting people there.
Yeah, we met some interesting people, and it was like super cheap, aka like not really charging us. So yeah, I had a ton of fun. It was a great trip with the boys. Good adventure in the city as usual. But yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, same, man.
Anything else? Is that a good episode?
I think that's good, man. We hit the 70-minute mark.
70-minute mark for Mark and Phil. But yes, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Lane One Talk Show, all platform. We'll see you next time. Peace.